Captain Hyun-woo stared at the data screen in his small command center. The mining ship Perseverance had been working in the asteroid belt for 3 months. His crew was tired, but the rare metals they found would make everyone rich when they returned to Earth. "Captain, we have a problem," said Sora from her station. She was the ship's communications officer and one of the smartest people Hyun-woo knew. Her voice sounded worried. "What kind of problem?" Hyun-woo asked as he walked. "Over to her station. I'm picking up a signal. It's not from any human ship or station. The pattern is completely different from anything in our databases." Hyun-woo felt his stomach drop. In all of human history, they had never found any sign of alien life. Scientists had been looking for hundreds of years. Finding nothing had become normal. "Are you sure it's not from one of our deep space missions?" he asked. "Positive, sir. The signal is using a completely unknown transmission method. It's like nothing we've ever seen." Tae-min, the chief engineer, looked up from his workstation. He was a quiet man who usually kept to himself. "Captain, my scanners are showing massive energy signatures approaching our position. Whatever is sending that signal, it's big." Hyun-woo's training kicked in. He had served in the Colonial Defense Force before becoming a mining captain. "Red alert, all hands to stations. Sora, can you decode the signal?" "Working on it, sir. The computer is trying to find patterns." Sora's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "Wait, I think I'm getting something." The main screen lit up, with text that appeared line by line as the computer worked to translate the alien message. What Hyun-woo read made his blood run cold. "To the unknown species currently occupying Keth territorial space, you are trespassing on sovereign territory of the Kith Empire. Your presence in the Kepler 442 system is illegal and will not be tolerated. You have 72 standard time units to remove all presence from this system. Failure to comply will result in appropriate military action. This is your only warning." The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the message on the screen. "Kepler 442, whispered Dong-hyun, the security chief. "That's where the new Sol colony is. 3 million people live there." Hyun-woo's mind raced. The Kepler 442 system had been humanity's most successful colonial expansion. 3 planets with perfect conditions for human life. Millions of families had moved there over the past 50 years. "Sir," Tae-min called out, "I'm reading multiple large objects dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They're huge, much bigger than anything we've ever built." On the main display, the scanner showed 12 massive ships. Each one was at least 5 kilometers long. The largest human battleship was only 800 meters long. "Sora, send a message back," Hyun-woo ordered. "Tell them we received their transmission. Ask for a meeting to discuss this peacefully." "Yes, sir." Sora worked for several minutes before looking up. "Message sent, Captain." They waited. The alien ships moved closer to their position but did not attack. After an hour, a response came. Back. "Your request for negotiation is noted. One representative may approach our lead vessel for discussion. Any attempt at deception or attack will result in immediate destruction of your vessel and all colonial holdings." Hyun-woo made a decision that would change human history forever. "Prepare a shuttle. I'm going over there." "Captain, that's not safe," Dong-hyun protested. "We don't know anything about these aliens. They could kill you the moment you step aboard their ship." "Someone has to make contact. If I don't come back, send everything we've learned to Earth and the colonies. Make sure they know what's coming." 2 hours later, Hyun-woo found himself in a small shuttle approaching the alien flagship. The ship was like nothing he had ever imagined. It looked like it was grown rather than built, with smooth curves and a dark metal that seemed to absorb light. A tractor beam pulled his shuttle into a landing bay. When the doors opened, Hyun-woo stepped out in his environmental suit. The air was breathable but hot and humid. The gravity was slightly heavier than Earth normal. 3 aliens waited for him. They stood nearly 3 meters tall and looked like giant lizards walking upright. Their skin was dark green with golden patterns. Their eyes were large and yellow, with no visible emotion. The center alien spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. The translation device on Hyun-woo's suit converted the words to Korean. "I am War Commander Thek of the Keth Empire. You speak for your species?" "I am Captain Hyun-woo of the human mining vessel Perseverance. I speak only for my ship, but I can send messages to my leaders." "Humans?" The alien repeated the word like it tasted bad. "Another primitive species that thinks it can expand without permission. How many of your kind infest our territory?" Hyun-woo tried to stay calm. "About 3 million people live in the Kepler 442 system. They have families, homes, entire lives built there. They can't just leave in 3 days. They will leave, or they will die. The Keth Empire has claimed this territory for over 2,000 of your years. Your ignorance of our claim does not make your presence legal." "We didn't know you existed," Hyun-woo said. "This is the first contact between our species. Surely we can work out some kind of agreement." War Commander Thek made a sound that might have been laughter. "Agreements are for equals. You are insects who have spread too far from your nest. The Kepler 442 system contains resources we require. Your small, weak species will find other places to live. And if we refuse, then you will join the 47 other species that made the same mistake. Their civilizations exist now only in our historical records." Hyun-woo felt a chill run down his spine. These aliens had destroyed 47 other intelligent species. They were talking about wiping out humanity like it was nothing more than pest control. "I need to contact my leaders," Hyun-woo said. "This decision is too big for me to make. You have 72 hours. Use them wisely." The meeting was over. Hyun-woo was escorted back to his shuttle and released. As he flew back to the Perseverance, he looked at the alien fleet on his scanner. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy an entire planet. Back on his ship, Hyun-woo called his senior officers together. "Sora, send an emergency transmission to Earth and all colonial governments. Tell them everything that happened here. Include all our scanner data on the alien ships." "What do you think will happen, Captain?" asked Tae-min. Hyun-woo looked at the tactical display showing the alien fleet. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew the answer, and it was terrifying. "I think we're about to find out what humans do when someone threatens to destroy everything we've built," he said quietly. None of them knew it yet, but they had just witnessed the beginning of a war that would change the galaxy forever. The Keth Empire had made a simple mistake. They assumed humans would react like every other species they had conquered. They were about to learn that humans were very different from anyone else they had ever met. Colonial Administrator Ji-hai had just finished her morning meeting when the emergency message arrived. She read Captain Hyun-woo's report 3 times before she could believe it. Aliens. Real aliens. And they were demanding that 3 million. Humans abandoned their homes. "Get me a connection to Earth," she told her assistant. "Emergency priority." Ji-hae had been running the New Soul colony for 8 years. She had helped build cities, farms, and factories on 3 different planets. The Kepler 442 system was humanity's greatest success story. Now, aliens were claiming it belonged to them. Security Chief Dong Hyun burst into her office without knocking. He was a big man with scars from his time as a Marine. Nothing usually scared him, but today his face was pale. "Ma'am, we have alien ships entering the system. 12 of them, just like the mining captain reported. They're enormous." Ji-Hai looked at the tactical display on her wall screen. The alien ships were indeed massive. The largest human military ships in the system looked like toys next to them. "How long until they reach our planets?" she asked. 6 hours at their current speed. Send out evacuation alerts to all 3 planets. Tell people to prepare emergency supplies, but not to panic. We might be able to solve this peacefully. But Ji-Hai didn't believe her own words. She had read the mining captain's report carefully. These Keth aliens didn't sound interested in peace. They sounded like conquerors. 3 hours later, the alien fleet took position around the 3 colonial planets. The lead ship sent a transmission requesting to speak with the human leader. Ji-Hai sat in her office, facing a holographic projection of the alien commander. The creature was even more intimidating than Captain Hyanwoo had described. Its yellow eyes seemed to look right through her. "I am Supreme War Leader Vorthak of the Keth Empire," the alien said in a voice like grinding stone. "You are the leader of these human settlements. I am Colonial Administrator Ji-Hai. I speak for the people of the Kepler 442 system. Then you will order your people to leave immediately. We have been generous in allowing 72 hours, but our patience grows thin." Ji-Hai tried to keep her voice steady. "Honored war leader, we received your message, but 3 million people cannot simply leave their homes. This system has been our home for 50 years. Our children were born here. We have built entire cities. Your ignorance of our prior claim does not concern us. This system belongs to the Keth Empire. It always has. We are willing to share the system," Ji-Hai offered. "There are multiple planets with plenty of room for both our species." War Leader Vorthak made a sound that might have been amusement. "Share? You misunderstand your situation, human. The Keth Empire does not share territory with inferior species." "Inferior species?" Ji-Hai felt anger rising in her chest. "We are intelligent beings just like you. We have rights. Rights are something the strong give to the weak out of mercy. You have no rights here except those we choose to grant." The alien's eyes seemed to glow brighter. "We have conquered 47 species across this galaxy. All of them believed they had rights until they met us. Ji-Hai's training in colonial administration had taught her to stay calm in difficult situations. But this alien was talking about genocide like it was routine maintenance. "What happened to those 47 species?" she asked. "Most chose to relocate to other systems we assigned them. A few chose resistance." War Leader Vorthak paused. "Those species no longer exist." The casual way the alien talked about extinction made Ji-Hai's blood run cold, but she also noticed something in the alien's attitude. Boredom. This conversation was routine for them. "You've done this many times before," she said. "Indeed. Your species follows the same pattern as all the others. First shock, then attempts at negotiation, then offers to share territory, then threats, then surrender." War Leader Vorthak leaned forward. "You are currently in the negotiation phase. It is pointless. Maybe other species followed that pattern," Ji-Hai said carefully. "But you don't know humans very well." "I know enough. You are a young species with primitive technology. Your largest warship carries less firepower than one of our scout vessels. You have no choice but to comply. Dong-hyun, who had been listening to the conversation, stepped into view of the hologram. The alien commander looked at him with mild interest. "This one is a warrior," War Leader Vorthak observed. "I can smell the violence on him. But even your warriors are weak. Our smallest soldier is stronger than your largest." "Physical strength isn't everything," Dong-hyun said quietly. "No? Then what else matters? Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your ships are fragile toys. Your weapons are primitive. What could possibly make you believe you can resist the Keth Empire?" Ji-hai made a decision that would change everything. Instead of begging or threatening, she did something the alien commander didn't expect. She smiled. "You're right," she said. "We can't match your technology or your physical strength. But there's one thing you haven't considered." "And what is that?" "You've conquered 47 species, but none of them were human. You have no idea what you're really dealing with." War Leader Vorthak's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "Humans don't give up, ever. We've fought wars on our own planet for thousands of years. We've never been conquered by anyone because we keep fighting until we win or until we're all dead. And we learn from every fight." Bold words from someone whose ships cannot even damage our shields. "You're probably right about that too," Ji-hai admitted. "But here's something you might want to consider. Every human in this system just learned that aliens exist and that those aliens want to destroy our homes and families. Do you think that news is going to make us more likely to surrender or more likely to fight?" For the first time, the alien commander looked slightly uncertain. "You would fight a war you cannot win?" "We'd fight a war we cannot win today," Ji-hai corrected. "But tomorrow is a different day, and the day after that is different too. The question isn't whether we can beat you right now. The question is whether you can beat us before we figure out how to beat you." War Leader Vorthak was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was colder. "You choose resistance, then." "We choose to defend our homes. There's a difference." "No," the alien said, as the hologram began to fade. "There is not. You have sealed your species' fate. When we are finished with these colonies, we will find your home world and end your entire civilization. You could have lived. Now you will all die." The transmission ended. Ji-hai sat in her chair, realizing what she had just done. She had declared war on an alien empire that had destroyed 47 other species. Dong-hyun put his hand on her shoulder. "Ma'am, did we just make the biggest mistake in human history?" Ji-hai looked at the tactical display showing the alien fleet surrounding their planets. "Maybe. Or maybe we just showed them that humans aren't like anyone else they've met." Outside, evacuation alarms were sounding as millions of people prepared to leave their homes. But Ji-hai noticed something else on the communication channels. Along with fear and panic, there was something the Keth Empire had probably never encountered before. Anger. Pure, cold human anger at being threatened by bullies. War Leader Vorthak had made a mistake. He assumed humans would react like the 47, species that came before them. But humans had spent their entire evolutionary history fighting, surviving, and refusing to give up. The Keth Empire was about to learn what that meant. Fleet Admiral Min Ho had been having a quiet morning when the emergency alert destroyed his peaceful day. He sat in his office at United Colonies Defense Command, reading reports from the Kepler 442 system. Each report was worse than the last. "Aliens," he said to himself, still not quite believing it. "Real aliens. And they want to kill us all." His aide, Commander Wu Jin, knocked and entered without waiting for permission. The young officer's face was grim. "Sir, we've received confirmation from 3 separate sources. The alien fleet is real. Their technology appears to be centuries ahead of ours, and they've given us an ultimatum." "What's our current military strength in the Kepler 442 system?" Minho asked. 2 patrol cruisers and a handful of system defense platforms against 12 capital ships that each outgun our largest battleship. Wu Jin paused. "Sir, if they attack, our forces there won't last 10 minutes. Minho stood and walked to the large display showing human space. Dozens of star systems connected by trade routes and communication lines. 200 billion people, living on hundreds of worlds. All of it threatened by aliens they had never known existed. Get me a connection to President Chen on Earth, Premier Yuki on Mars, and all the colonial governors. Emergency session in 1 hour. While they waited for the meeting, Minho called Dr. Yeonju to his office. She was the director of the Xenobiology Institute, a research center that had spent 50 years studying the possibility of alien life. "Doctor, I need to know everything you can tell me about these Keth aliens from the reports we've received." Dr. Yeonju had been studying the communications and scanner data for hours. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had spent her career preparing for this exact moment. "Admiral, based on their communication patterns and behavior, I can make several observations," she began. "First, they're extremely confident, almost arrogant. They spoke to our colonists like they were explaining something to children. That could be good for us," Commander Wu Jin suggested. "Overconfident enemies make mistakes." "Maybe," Dr. Yeonju continued. "But there's something else. They mentioned destroying 47 other species. That suggests they've been doing this for a very long time. This is routine for them." Minho felt a chill. "So they're experienced at genocide." That's the concerning part. But there's also something encouraging in the reports. When Administrator Ji Hai suggested that humans might be different, the alien commander seemed uncertain, like he hadn't considered that possibility. The emergency meeting with Earth and the colonies was tense. President Chen looked tired, even though it was morning in Geneva. The other leaders appeared on screen from across human space. "Ladies and gentlemen," Minho began, "we face an existential threat to our entire species. The question before us is simple. Do we fight or do we run?" "Fight with what?" demanded Governor Park from the Centauri system. "You've seen their ships. Our weapons can't even scratch them." "Running isn't really an option either," pointed out Premier Yuki. "If we abandon Kepler 442, what's to stop them from demanding we abandon the next system? And the next?" President Chen leaned forward on the screen. "Admiral Minho, what's your professional assessment of our military options?" Minho had been dreading this question. "Honestly, sir, in a direct fleet engagement, we'd lose badly. But that doesn't mean we're helpless." He activated a display showing human military doctrine. "For the past 2 centuries, our military planning has assumed we might face a technologically superior enemy. Not aliens. We thought it would be rebel colonies or advanced AI. But the principles are the same." "Explain," President Chen ordered. "Don't fight their kind of war," Minho said simply. "We don't line up our fleets against theirs and trade shots. We use asymmetric warfare, hit-and-run attacks, guerrilla tactics. We make it too expensive for them to occupy our territory." "Commander," Wu Jin brought up classified files on the main display. "We've been developing these tactics for decades under Protocol Endgame. It's our plan for fighting an unwinnable war." What does that mean in practical terms? Asked Governor Park. It means we turn our entire civilization into a weapon, Min-Ho explained. Every factory becomes a weapons plant. Every civilian transport becomes a potential warship. Every asteroid mining station becomes a fortress. We don't just fight with our military, we fight with everything we have. Dr. Yeonju raised her hand. Admiral, there's something else to consider. From the psychological profile I'm building of these Keth aliens, they expect quick victories. They're used to enemies who surrender when faced with overwhelming force. And humans don't surrender, President Chen said slowly. Exactly. We might not be able to beat them, but we can probably survive long enough to learn how to beat them. Humans are very good at adapting and learning from combat experience. The debate continued for hours. Some leaders wanted to try diplomacy. Others suggested evacuating the threatened colonies. But gradually, a consensus emerged. We fight, President Chen finally declared, not because we can win, but because running will only delay the inevitable. If these aliens have destroyed 47 species, they're not going to stop with us. After the meeting ended, Min-Ho met privately with Commander Wu Jin and Dr. Yeonju. Doctor, I need you to analyze everything we know about Keth technology and tactics. Find weaknesses we can exploit. Yes, sir. What about their claim that they've destroyed 47 other species? Should we try to verify that? Actually, yes, Min-Ho said thoughtfully. If it's true, there might be records or ruins we can study. Learn from the mistakes of others. Commander Wu Jin pulled up the protocol endgame files. Sir, implementing this will fundamentally change our society. We're talking about putting our entire civilization on a war footing. The aliens already made that choice for us when they threatened to destroy us, Min-Ho replied. The question now is whether we're going to fight smart or just fight hard. Over the next 24 hours, orders went out across human space. Military reserves were activated. Civilian factories began retooling to produce weapons and armor. Asteroid mining stations started building defensive platforms. But most importantly, something else was happening. Word of the alien threat spread through human space faster than any official communication. And the response wasn't panic or despair. It was anger. Humans across dozens of star systems were learning that aliens existed and that those aliens viewed humanity as an inferior species to be swept aside. The reaction was exactly what Min-Ho had hoped for and exactly what the Keth Empire had never encountered before. Millions of humans were volunteering for military service. Civilian engineers were working around the clock to improve weapons designs. Scientists were sharing research freely to help the war effort. Sir, Commander Wu Jin reported, recruitment centers are being overwhelmed. We have more volunteers than we can process. Min-Ho smiled grimly. The Keth Empire conquered 47 species by being stronger and more advanced. But they've never faced a species that gets stronger when threatened. Dr. Yeonju looked up from her analysis of the alien communications. Admiral, I think I understand why the alien commander seemed uncertain when Administrator Ji-Hai suggested humans might be different. Why? Because for the first time in probably thousands of years, he met a species that wasn't afraid of him. And fear is clearly a major part of their conquest strategy. As reports came in from across human space, a picture emerged. Humanity was transforming itself for war faster than anyone had thought possible. The peaceful trading civilization was revealing something that had always been hidden underneath. Humans were survivors. They were fighters. And they were very, very angry. The Keth Empire was about to learn that threatening to destroy humanity was the worst mistake they had ever made. Lieutenant Commander Hay-Wan watched the Keth fleet approach through her ship's sensors. Her stealth corvette Ghost Wind was hidden among the asteroids near Kepler 442c, invisible to alien scanners. Around her, dozens of other hidden ships waited for the signal to attack. The evacuation of the 3 planets had taken 60 hours. 3 million people had left their homes with whatever they could carry. But they hadn't left the system defenseless. Tactical, what's our status? Hay-Wan asked quietly. Tactical Officer Jun-Suk checked his displays. All stealth ships are in position. The defense platforms are powered down and camouflaged as asteroid debris. Mining charges are placed and ready. The plan was simple. When the Keth moved to claim the empty planets, they would discover that humans had left them a surprise. Contact from Admiral Minho, reported the communications officer. Operation Wasp Nest is authorized. We are weapons-free. Hay-Wan felt her heart rate increase. In a few minutes, she would fire the first shots in humanity's war against an alien empire. She thought about her daughter back on Earth, and about the 3 million people who had been forced to flee their homes. All ships. This is Ghost Wind. Remember, we're not here to win a fleet battle. We're here to make them bleed and learn their capabilities. Hit hard, then run. The Keth fleet moved into orbit around the first planet. The aliens clearly expected to find abandoned cities ready for occupation. Instead, their lead ship triggered a minefield that had been disguised as space debris. Explosions bloomed across space as nuclear mines detonated against Keth shields. The alien ships staggered under the unexpected assault, their formations disrupting as they tried to identify the threat. Now, Hay-Wan ordered. Dozens of human ships revealed themselves from hiding places among asteroids and debris. They weren't large ships, mostly corvettes and destroyers that could hide effectively. But they carried the most powerful weapons humanity could build. Hay-Wan's ship fired a full spread of quantum torpedoes at the nearest Keth cruiser. The weapons struck the alien ship's shields and actually managed to penetrate, causing visible damage to the hull. Target hit, Jun-Suk reported excitedly. Their shields aren't perfect. But the Keth response was swift and devastating. Energy. Beams lashed out from the alien ships, destroying 2 human vessels instantly. The remaining human ships scattered, using their superior maneuverability to avoid the heavy alien weapons. All ships, execute harassment pattern Delta, Hay-Wan ordered. Don't get drawn into a slugging match. The human ships began hit-and-run attacks, striking at the edges of the alien formation before disappearing back into the asteroid field. They were like mosquitoes attacking a giant. Individually harmless but collectively dangerous and impossible to ignore. The Keth commanders tried to respond with traditional fleet tactics, forming defensive formations and coordinating their fire. But the humans refused to cooperate. They struck from unexpected angles, used the asteroids for cover, and never stayed in one place long enough to be targeted effectively. Enemy ship moving to secure the orbital platform above Planet 2, Jun-Suk reported. Perfect. Hay-Wan smiled. Grimly. Signal the platform. What the Keth had assumed was an abandoned orbital factory was actually a disguised weapons platform. When the alien ship moved close enough, the factory revealed massive missile batteries and opened fire at point-blank range. The Keth ship's shields held, but barely. More importantly, the psychological effect was devastating. The aliens realized they had flown directly into what humans would call a trap. Similar surprises awaited the Keth throughout the system. Asteroid mining stations that were actually fortresses, cargo containers that were really sensor buoys, Even pieces of debris that were actually camouflaged attack drones. But the humans were learning too. Every exchange of fire provided data about Keth weapons, shields, and tactics. The aliens were powerful, but they fought in predictable patterns. Their beam weapons have a charging cycle, Jun-Suk observed during a brief lull in the fighting. If we can time our attacks right after they fire, we have about 8 seconds when they're vulnerable. And their formations are very rigid, added the navigation officer. They don't adapt quickly when we change tactics. The battle continued. For 6 hours, the humans lost 8 ships and had 12 more badly damaged. But they had also damaged 3 Keth vessels and completely disrupted the alien timetable for occupying the system. More importantly, they had proven that the Keth were not invincible. Ghost Wind, this is Admiral Minho, came a transmission from the fleet command ship hiding on the edge of the system. Begin withdrawal. You've done enough. As the human ships retreated, the Keth fleet finally secured orbit around the 3 planets. But their victory was nothing like what they had expected. Instead of quickly claiming an empty system, they had fought a 6-hour battle and taken casualties. War leader Vorthak studied the tactical reports from his flagship. The human resistance had been unexpected. Analysis, he commanded his tactical officer. The humans employed asymmetric warfare tactics we have never encountered, the officer reported. They refused direct engagement, used the environment against us, and coordinated attacks from multiple hidden positions. Their ships are still inferior to ours. Yes, war leader, but they used those inferior ships more effectively than we anticipated. They also demonstrated unexpected creativity in their defensive preparations. Vorthak considered this. In 47 previous conquests, enemy resistance had always followed the same pattern. Desperate fleet actions, defensive stands around, major worlds, then surrender when the futility became obvious. These humans had done none of those things. They had turned an entire star system into a weapon, then used it to inflict actual casualties on Keth forces. What of the human civilian population? Vorthak asked. Completely evacuated, war leader. But our intelligence suggests they have not. Fled to other systems. Long-range sensors detect massive fleet movements throughout human space. They are massing for a counterattack? Unknown, war leader. Their movements do not follow standard military doctrine. This troubled Vorthak more than he cared to admit. The Keth Empire's success had always been based on predictability. Other species always reacted to superior force in the same way, with fear, desperation, and eventual surrender. But these humans seemed to be reacting with something else entirely. Prepare a message to the Keth High Command, Vorthak ordered. Inform them that human resistance is more organized than anticipated. Request additional forces for the assault on their primary worlds. As the message was sent, Vorthak looked at the tactical display showing the human ships retreating into deep space. They had fought his fleet and lived to fight again. In his long military career, that was unusual. What was more unusual was that the humans seemed to be learning from the encounter. Their last few attacks had been noticeably more effective than their first ones. The Keth Empire had built its reputation on quick, decisive victories that left enemy species too shocked and demoralized to resist effectively. But this first battle had not been quick or decisive. It had been educational. And something told Vorthak that the humans had learned more from it than the Keth had. Set course for the human core systems, he ordered. We will end this quickly before they have time to adapt further. But as his fleet prepared to leave the Kepler 442 system, sensor reports came in of human ship movements throughout their territory. The humans weren't running or hiding, They were mobilizing for war, and they were doing it faster than any species the Keth had ever encountered. Supreme War Leader Vorthak stood in the command center of his flagship, studying holographic displays showing the entire Keth Empire. For 3,000 years, the Empire had expanded steadily by conquering species after species. It had never faced serious resistance until now. Report, he commanded his intelligence officer. The human resistance continues across 17 star systems, the officer replied nervously. They have not surrendered despite losing their primary colony. Instead, they appear to be adapting. Vorthak's scales darkened with annoyance. The word adapting had appeared in too many reports lately. Species were supposed to surrender when faced with Keth power, not learn from their defeats. Explain adapting, he demanded. Their latest attacks show significant improvements in tactics and technology. They are also using psychological warfare methods we have never encountered. The holographic display showed recordings from recent battles. Human ships that appeared to be cargo vessels would suddenly reveal hidden weapons and attack Keth patrols. Asteroid bases that seemed abandoned would activate when Keth ships came close. Most disturbing of all, the humans seemed to be getting better at fighting with each encounter. What psychological warfare methods? Vorthak asked. They broadcast messages on all frequencies during battles. Analysis suggests they are trying to demoralize our forces. Play one of these messages. The recording that followed made Vorthak's blood run cold. Instead of pleas for mercy or threats of retaliation, the human transmission was something else entirely. This is Captain Kyung-ho of the human destroyer Defiance. Attention, Keth forces. You wanted a war? You got one. Every ship you lose teaches us how to kill more of you. Every battle makes us stronger. You should have left us alone. The message was delivered in a calm, almost friendly tone that somehow made it more chilling than any scream of rage. They sound confident, Vorthak observed. Yes, War Leader. This pattern appears in all their communications. They do not beg or threaten. They simply inform us that our destruction is inevitable. Vorthak dismissed his officers and considered the situation privately. The Keth Empire had achieved its dominance through a simple strategy: demonstrate overwhelming power, then allow the enemy to surrender with minimal losses. It was efficient and had worked perfectly for millennia, but humans weren't surrendering. Instead, they seemed to be treating the conflict as a learning experience. Intelligence analyst Su Min worked in a secure bunker deep beneath the surface of Europa. Her job was to study captured Keth technology and communications to find weaknesses the human military could exploit. What she had discovered was disturbing in ways she hadn't expected. Admiral Minho, she said during their daily briefing, I've completed my analysis of the captured Keth database from the Kepler 442 battle. What did you find? The Keth Empire is older than we thought. They've been conquering species for over 10,000 years. The 47 species they mentioned to Administrator Ji-Hai were just the most recent ones. Minho frowned. How many species have they actually destroyed? Hundreds, maybe thousands. They've been doing this for so long that it's become routine. Su Min brought up a holographic map showing Keth expansion over time. But here's the interesting part. Every conquest followed the same pattern. The map showed Keth fleets arriving at alien worlds, brief battles, then surrender. The average time from first contact to complete conquest was less than 6 months. They've never faced prolonged resistance, Su Min continued. Every species they've encountered either surrendered immediately or was destroyed in a matter of weeks. What does that tell us about their weaknesses? Several things. First, they're not used to adapting their tactics during a campaign. They have standard procedures for everything because those procedures have always worked. Second, they've never had to fight a war of attrition. And third, Sumin paused, checking her data again. Third, they've never fought a species that actually got stronger during the war instead of weaker. Meanwhile, Captain Kyung Ho was conducting his own research aboard the deep space vessel Darwin. His mission was to study the psychological aspects of human-Keth conflict. Dr. Yeonju, he reported during his latest transmission to Earth, I think we've identified the fundamental difference between humans and every other species the Keth have encountered. Explain. Every other species they've conquered were either herbivores, ambush predators, or scavengers. Their evolutionary history prepared them for conflict avoidance or short, decisive fights. And humans? Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We're designed to chase prey over long distances until it dies of exhaustion. We're literally built to outlast our enemies. The implications were staggering. The Keth Empire had conquered hundreds of species by using their superior technology to deliver quick, overwhelming defeats, but they had never faced a species that was evolutionarily designed to fight long, grinding campaigns. There's something else, Kyung Ho continued. I've been analyzing Keth communications patterns. They're starting to show signs of confusion and frustration. This war isn't going according to their established procedures. Dr. Yeonju reviewed the psychological profiles they were building of their enemies. The Keth appear to be a very rigid culture. They've been successful for so long that they've lost the ability to innovate under pressure, unlike humans, who seem to do our best innovative work when someone is trying to kill us. The war had been going on for 18 months now. By Keth standards, it should have been over in 6. Instead, human resistance was actually increasing. Across human space, entire civilizations were transforming themselves. Peaceful colony worlds were becoming fortress systems. Civilian engineers were designing new weapons based on captured Keth technology. Most importantly, humans were sharing information and adapting to enemy tactics faster than the Keth could counter them. Sir, Commander Wu Jin reported to Admiral Min Ho, we're receiving battle reports from the Centauri system, the humans. They're just successfully destroyed an entire Keth patrol squadron. Casualties on our side? None. They used a new tactic where they disguised a battle cruiser as a damaged freighter. When the Keth moved to investigate, the freighter revealed its weapons and destroyed them at close range. Minho smiled. 6 months ago, human forces would have lost half their ships in an engagement like that. Now they were winning battles without taking casualties. The enemy is adapting too, Wu Jin warned. Their latest ships have improved shields and weapons. Of course they are. But here's the question. Who's adapting faster? The answer was becoming clear across dozens of battlefields. The Keth had superior technology and vast experience. But humans had something the aliens had never encountered. The ability to treat every defeat as a lesson and every victory as a stepping stone to something better. War Leader Vorthak received the latest casualty reports with growing alarm. Keth. Losses were mounting, while human forces seemed to be getting more effective every day. Request immediate reinforcements from the core worlds, he ordered, and authorization to begin targeting human civilian populations. But even as he sent the message, Vorthak wondered if reinforcements would be enough. The humans were fighting unlike any enemy the Keth had ever faced. They seemed to view the war not as a crisis to be survived, but as a problem to be solved. And they were very good at solving problems. Intelligence reports suggested that human industrial capacity was actually increasing during the war, not decreasing. Their losses were being replaced faster than the Keth could inflict them. Most disturbing of all, intercepted human communications suggested that they were beginning to see the Keth Empire not as an unstoppable force, but as a puzzle to be figured out. Vorthak had a growing suspicion that the Keth Empire had made the worst mistake in its long history. They had given humans a reason to study the art of war. Space Marine Colonel Boram checked her equipment one final time before giving the signal. Her assault team was crammed into a boarding pod, about to launch at a Keth heavy cruiser that had made the mistake of getting too close to the asteroid. "Field. Remember," she told her Marines, "we're not here to capture the ship. We're here to study how they fight up close, take their technology, and make them afraid to board human vessels." The war had been going on for 3 years now. What had started as humanity's desperate fight for survival had become something else entirely. Humans were no longer just defending themselves. They were hunting. "Launch in 10 seconds, called. The pilot, Boram, thought about how much had changed since the first Keth attack. Back then, human forces had been terrified of alien technology and superior numbers. Now, her Marines carried weapons built from captured Keth components and wore armor designed specifically to fight aliens in close combat. 5 seconds. Launch! The boarding pod shot across space like a bullet, too small and fast for Keith Point defense systems to track effectively. It slammed into the alien ship's hull and began cutting through the armor with industrial lasers. Within minutes, Boram and her team were inside the Keth ship. The interior was hot and humid, designed for the aliens' reptilian biology. Emergency. Lights cast everything in a red glow that made the corridors look like the inside of a mouth. Team 1, head for engineering. Team 2, secure the bridge. Team 3, find their computer core, Boram ordered. The Marines moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this dozens of times before. Capturing Keth ships had become routine. The first aliens they encountered were clearly surprised to see humans aboard their vessel. The Keth warriors were larger and stronger than humans, but they fought like they expected their enemies to be afraid of them. Boram's Marines were not afraid. They were angry. Marine Sang-Woo tossed a flashbang grenade into a group of Keth defenders, then followed it with precise rifle fire. His weapon was designed specifically to penetrate Keth personal armor, and it did its job effectively. "Colonel, this is Team 2, came a radio call. "Bridge is secured. Their captain is demanding to know how we dare board a Keth vessel." "Tell him we dare because we can," Boram replied as she helped Team 3 break into the ship's computer. "Systems. And because we're really good at it now." That was the truth. Human boarding tactics had evolved dramatically during the war. Early attempts had been costly disasters. But humans learned from every failure, while the Keth kept using the same defensive procedures that had worked against other species. "Data downloaded," reported technical specialist Eun Jung. "Their navigation computer has jump coordinates for a dozen Keth systems we didn't know about." "Excellent. Set demolition charges and let's go home." As they prepared to leave, the Keth captain managed to break free from his guards. He was a massive creature, even larger than most of his species, with scales that bore the scars of many. "Battles! You cannot defeat the Keth Empire," he snarled in broken human language. "We have conquered 1,000 species. You are nothing." Boram looked at the alien captain with something that might have been pity. 1,000 species that gave up when you showed them your big ships and scary weapons. But we're not them. Your technology is still inferior to ours, maybe. But here's the thing about humans. Boram smiled coldly. We don't need to be better than you. We just need to be more stubborn, and we are very, very stubborn. She activated the demolition charges, and her team evacuated just as the Keth ship exploded. Similar raids were happening across the war zone. Human forces had stopped trying to match Keth fleets in direct battle. Instead, they had developed a strategy that was slowly driving the aliens to desperation. Engineer Sang Woo worked in a converted asteroid base, surrounded by captured Keth technology and human innovations. His job was to design new weapons that could be mass-produced by human industry. The aliens have better materials and more advanced manufacturing, he explained to visiting Admiral Min Ho, but we're better at making things that are cheap, reliable, and easy to fix. He showed the Admiral his latest creation, a missile that used mostly human components but had a Keth-designed warhead. It's not as sophisticated as pure Keth weapons, but we can build 100 of these for every one of theirs, and they're specifically designed to exploit weaknesses we've discovered in Keth ship designs. How many weaknesses have we found? Min Ho asked. Dozens. The Keth build everything to be as advanced as possible, but that makes their systems complicated and fragile. When something breaks, they need specialized parts and expert technicians to fix it. Sang Woo pulled up a holographic display showing a Keth warship. Look at this power distribution network. It's incredibly efficient, but it has 17 single points of failure. Hit any one of them, and the entire ship loses power. And human ships? Designed by engineers who assume everything will break at the worst possible moment. Redundant systems, modular components, and repair procedures that work even when half the ship is gone. That philosophy was paying off across the war zone. Human fleets that should have been destroyed were instead limping home, getting repaired, and returning to fight again. Meanwhile, Keth ships that suffered even minor damage often had to withdraw for extensive repairs. The psychological impact was devastating for the aliens. They were used to quick victories against enemies who stayed defeated. But humans seemed to have an unlimited capacity for taking losses and coming back stronger. Dr. Yeonju had spent the war studying captured Keth prisoners and communications. Her psychological profile of the enemy had become essential reading. For human military commanders, the Keth Empire is held together by fear and the perception of invincibility, she explained to a gathering of colonial governors. For 10,000 years, they've maintained control by convincing other species that resistance is futile. And now, asked Governor Park, now they're facing a species that doesn't believe resistance is futile. Every human victory, no matter how small, undermines their entire system of control. The evidence was mounting that the war was spreading beyond humanity. Intelligence reports suggested that several species under Keth control were beginning to rebel. Some were even reaching out to human forces for assistance. The Keth are discovering that their empire wasn't as stable as they thought, Dr. Yeonju continued. It turns out that when you conquer people through fear alone, they're always looking for a chance to fight back. War leader Vorthak received the latest reports with growing desperation. The human resistance had not only failed to collapse, it was actually expanding. 3 Keth systems had been raided in the past month, and 2 subject species had openly rebelled. How is this possible? He demanded. We have superior technology, superior numbers, superior experience. How can these primitive humans continue to resist? His tactical officer had been studying human behavior for months. War leader, I believe we have fundamentally misunderstood our enemy. Explain. We assumed humans would behave like every other species we have conquered. But humans appear to have evolved for a different kind of warfare. They are not trying to defeat us quickly, They are trying to outlast us. Outlast us? Yes, war leader. Every battle we fight costs us irreplaceable ships and experienced crews. Every battle they fight teaches them how to fight us more effectively. They are turning this war into a contest of endurance. Vorthak considered this. The Keth Empire had always won wars through overwhelming displays of power that convinced enemies to surrender quickly. But humans seem to view the war as a long-term project. What do our allies in the core worlds recommend? They suggest we increase our commitment and end this war quickly before other subject species begin to follow the human example. But Vorthak was beginning to suspect it was already too late for that. The humans had done something no other species had managed in 10,000 years. They had made the Keth Empire look vulnerable. And once that perception spread, the Empire's entire system of control would begin to collapse. As he studied the tactical displays showing human raids across a dozen systems, Vorthak had a disturbing realization. The humans weren't just fighting for their own survival anymore. They were fighting to destroy everything the Keth Empire represented, and they were winning. Commodore Insuk studied the tactical display showing the heart of Keth space. For 4 years, humans had been fighting a defensive war. Now, for the first time, they were about to carry the fight to the enemy's home territory. Final equipment. Check. She ordered her crew aboard the captured Keth battleship Retribution. The ship had been taken in a boarding action 6 months ago and completely rebuilt with human systems while keeping its external appearance unchanged. Infiltration. "Team reports ready?" called intelligence operative Chang Min from his station. His team had spent months learning to impersonate Keth communications and identification protocols. "Engineering reports ready," added Chief Engineer Tae Min. "All Keth systems appear normal to their sensors, but we can switch to human combat mode in under 30 seconds. Insuk nodded. Operation Predator was the most ambitious human military action of the war. Instead of waiting for the Keth to attack human territory, they were going to strike at the alien empire's core worlds. Communications. Transmit our fake Keth identification codes and request clearance to enter the Kethvar system. The reply came back in the alien language, which Chang Min translated immediately. We're cleared for approach to the main orbital shipyard. They think we're returning from a patrol mission. As they entered the Keth home system, Insuk marveled at what she saw. Dozens of massive space stations orbited the alien homeworld. Hundreds of ships moved between orbital facilities and planet-based installations. This was the industrial heart of an empire that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. "Target analysis complete," reported Tactical Officer Jun Suk. "Primary orbital shipyard handles construction of their largest warships. Secondary target is the communication relay that coordinates fleet movements across 17 sectors." What about planetary defenses? Minimal. The Keth have never been attacked in their home system. Most of their defensive platforms are designed to prevent rebellions on the planet's surface, not to stop incoming fleets. That overconfidence was about to cost them dearly. The Keth had become so used to being the hunters that they had forgotten how to be the hunted. Signal the rest of the task force. Begin the attack. Across the system, 12 other disguised human ships revealed their true nature simultaneously. Ships that had appeared to be Keth patrol vessels suddenly opened fire on orbital installations. A cargo transport revealed hidden missile batteries and destroyed an entire squadron of Keth fighters before they could launch. The most devastating attack came from Chang Min's infiltration team. They had used stolen Keth codes to take control of the orbital defense grid and turn it against the shipyards it was supposed to protect. "Primary shipyard is destroyed," Jun Suk reported with satisfaction. Estimate 47 capital ships destroyed while still under construction. But the real impact wasn't material. For the first time in recorded Keth history, their homeworld was under attack. Panic spread through their command structure as they tried to understand how humans had penetrated this far into secure territory. Commodore, we're receiving communications from the planetary surface, Chang Min reported. It's interesting. Put it on speaker. The transmission was in a language that wasn't Keth. Chang Min worked to translate it, then looked up in surprise. Ma'am, it's from the slave species on the planet's surface. They're asking if we're the humans they've heard about and if we're here to liberate them. Insuk felt a chill of realization. The Keth Empire wasn't just a military force. It was a system of oppression that controlled hundreds of species across thousands of worlds. And those species had been watching the human resistance with growing hope. Changmin, can you identify how many different species are on that planet? At least 12 different languages in the transmissions we're intercepting, and they're all asking the same thing. Are we here to free them? The tactical situation was developing faster than Insuk had expected. What was supposed to be a hit-and-run raid was turning into something much larger. Ma'am, Tactical Officer Jun-suk interrupted. Keth reinforcements are arriving. 3 battle fleets jumping in from hyperspace. How long until they reach us? 20 minutes. Insuk made a decision that would change the course of the war. Instead of withdrawing immediately, she opened a communication channel to all frequencies in the system. This is Commodore Insuk of the Human Colonial Defense Force. To all oppressed species in this system, humanity remembers what it means to fight for freedom. We're here to show you that the Keth Empire can be defeated. She switched to a direct transmission to the approaching Keth fleets. To Keth forces, you made a mistake when you threatened to destroy humanity. We don't surrender and we don't forget. This is just the beginning. The human task force withdrew before the Keth reinforcements could engage them, but the damage was done. News of the attack spread across the Empire faster than official communications could suppress it. On dozens of worlds, species that had been enslaved for centuries began to whisper that maybe, just maybe, the Keth Empire wasn't invincible after all. Dr. Eun-jung worked in a secret laboratory hidden in the asteroid belt, developing weapons specifically designed for Keth biology. Her research team had been studying captured alien prisoners for months, learning everything they could about Keth physiology. Admiral Min-ho, she reported during their weekly briefing, we've made a breakthrough in biological warfare applications. Explain. The Keth have a very specialized immune system. It's extremely effective against diseases from their homeworld, but completely vulnerable to pathogens from other environments. She brought up a holographic display showing Keth biological systems. We can create a virus that would be harmless to humans but lethal to Keth. It would spread through their air recycling systems and could potentially disable entire fleets. Min-ho considered this carefully. Doctor, that raises serious ethical questions. We're talking about genocide. Yes, sir. That's why I wanted to discuss it with you personally. Do we want to become the kind of species that destroys entire civilizations? It was a question that had been troubling human leadership since the war began. The Keth Empire had destroyed hundreds of species and threatened to add humanity to that list. Would using biological weapons make humans just as bad as their enemies? Continue the research, Min-ho decided finally. But don't deploy anything yet. The threat of having such weapons might be as valuable as actually using them. Meanwhile, intelligence operative Chang Min was analyzing the most important discovery of the war. Detailed records of the Keth Empire's structure and history. Sir, he reported to Admiral Minho, the Empire is much more fragile than we realized. It's not a unified civilization. It's hundreds of conquered species held together by fear and military force. How many species? At least 400 that we can identify from their records, and based on the communications we intercepted during the Homeworld raid. Many of them are ready to rebel if they think they can win. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just fighting the Keth. They were fighting an empire held together by the perception that resistance was impossible. What would happen if that perception changed? Minho asked. Based on historical patterns from their own records, the empire would collapse within decades, maybe years. Chang Min brought up a holographic map showing Keth territory. The empire is too large to control by force alone. They depend on subject species believing that rebellion is hopeless. But humans have proven that's not true. As reports came in from across the galaxy, it became clear that the Homeworld raid had achieved something beyond its military objectives. It had shattered the myth of Keth invincibility. Rebellions began breaking out on worlds that had been peaceful for centuries. Species that had never communicated with each other started coordinating resistance efforts. Most importantly, they were asking humanity for help. We're receiving requests for military assistance from 17 different species, reported Commander Wu Jin. Some are offering to join the war against the Keth in exchange for human support. Admiral Minho realized that the nature of the conflict was changing. It was no longer humanity versus the Keth Empire. It was becoming a galaxy-wide revolution against an oppressive system that had existed for millennia. Draft a response to all the rebel groups, he ordered. Tell them that humanity stands with anyone fighting for freedom. But make it clear that we're not interested in replacing the Keth Empire with a human empire. What are we interested in, sir? Minho looked at the display showing communication requests from dozens of species across the galaxy. For the first time since the war began, he felt something that wasn't anger or determination. He felt hope. We're interested in making sure that no species ever again has to face what the Keth threatened to do to us, he said. We're going to change how this galaxy works. The hunters had become the hunted, and the Keth Empire was about to learn what happened when you gave an entire galaxy a reason to fight for freedom. Admiral Hyun Woo stood on the bridge of the human flagship Determination, watching the largest fleet in human history approach the Keth homeworld. 5 years after that first contact in the asteroid belt, he was about to lead the final assault on the empire that had threatened to destroy his species. Fleet status report, he ordered. 800 human vessels ready for combat, reported Fleet Commander Wu Jin, plus allied ships from 43 different species. Total force strength, over 1,500 vessels. Hyunwoo marveled at how much had changed. What had started as humanity's desperate fight for survival had become a galaxy-wide revolution. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were finally striking back at their oppressors. Communications from the surface, called Intelligence Officer Chang Min. The slave populations on Kethvar are reporting that Keth military forces are retreating to underground bunkers. They're abandoning their own homeworld? Asked Tactical Officer Jun Suk in surprise. They're not abandoning it, Hyun Woo realized. They're preparing for a siege. The Keth leadership would rather destroy their own planet than surrender. That was typical of everything humans had learned about their enemies during 5 years of war. The Keth Empire was built on the idea that they were superior to every other species. Admitting defeat would destroy everything they believed about themselves. Admiral, reported the sensor officer, we're detecting massive energy buildups from the planetary defense systems. They're preparing to fire on their own cities rather than let them be liberated. Hyun-woo felt a familiar anger. Even now, facing certain defeat, the Keth were willing to commit genocide rather than accept that they had been wrong. Signal all ships. Priority Alpha targets are the planetary bombardment systems. We're not here to destroy the Keth homeworld. We're here to free it. The final battle began with a coordinated assault on the orbital defenses. Human ships that had learned to fight effectively against superior technology led the attack, while allied vessels from dozens of species provided support. But this wasn't the one-sided slaughter that earlier battles had been. The Keth were fighting with the desperation of a species facing extinction, and they still had superior individual ship technology. "Heavy casualties in the second wave," reported Wu Jin grimly. "We've lost 47 ships in the first hour." And their losses? 12 ships destroyed, 34 damaged. Under normal circumstances, those casualty ratios would force a retreat. But these weren't normal circumstances. The human fleet was supported by every species in the galaxy that had suffered under Keth oppression. "Continue the attack," Hyun-woo ordered. "Signal all allied forces. Today, we end 10,000 years of tyranny." The battle raged for 18 hours. Human tactics that had been developed over 5 years of warfare finally met their ultimate test. Boarding parties led by Colonel Bo-Ram captured key orbital installations. Engineering teams led by Sang-woo disabled Keth weapon systems using techniques learned from dozens of previous battles. Most importantly, the combined fleet fought with a unity of purpose that the Keth had never faced before. These weren't conquered subjects being forced to fight. These were free beings choosing to risk everything for the chance to live without fear. "Admiral," Chang Min called out excitedly, "we're receiving a transmission from Supreme War Leader Vorthak. He's requesting terms for surrender." The bridge fell silent. After 5 years of the most brutal war in galactic history, the Keth Empire was finally asking for peace. Put him on screen. The holographic display showed the alien leader who had started this war with his ultimatum to humanity. Vorthak looked older and more tired than Hyun-woo remembered, but his yellow eyes still held the arrogance that had characterized his species for millennia. "Human Admiral," Vorthak began in his rumbling voice, "the Keth Empire is prepared to discuss terms for ending this conflict." "I'm listening." "We propose a return to the original territorial boundaries. Your species may keep the systems you occupied before our first contact. In exchange, you will withdraw from all Keth territory and cease supporting rebellions among our subject species." Hyun-woo almost laughed. Even in defeat, the Keth leader was trying to negotiate as if he were in a position of strength. "War Leader Vorthak, I don't think you understand your situation. Your empire is collapsing. Your subject species are in open revolt. Your homeworld is under siege. You're not in a position to make demands." "Then what are your terms?" Hyun-woo looked around his bridge at the officers who had fought this war from beginning to end. Sora, who had decoded the first alien message. Taemin, who had designed the weapons that made victory possible. All of them had lost friends and family to this war. Complete and unconditional surrender of all Keth military forces, Hyun-woo began. Immediate release of all enslaved species. Full accounting of all war crimes committed by your empire over the past 10,000 years. Impossible. The Keth Empire will never surrender unconditionally to an inferior species. Then you'll be destroyed unconditionally by an inferior species, Hyun-woo replied calmly. Your choice. The transmission ended. Vorthak had chosen pride over survival. Resume the attack, Hyun-woo ordered. But before the fleet could continue its assault, something unexpected happened. Communications began flooding in from across the Keth homeworld, not from the military leadership, but from ordinary Keth citizens. "Admiral," Chang Min reported in amazement, "we're receiving surrender offers from individual Keth cities. They're asking for protection from their own government." "What do you mean?" "The civilian population is rebelling against the military leadership. They're saying they want to surrender individually, even if their government won't." Dr. Yeonju, who had spent years studying Keth psychology, provided the explanation. "Their entire society is based on the belief that they're the superior species in the galaxy. But we've proven that's not true. Now their own people are questioning everything they've been taught. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a collapse. Keth military units began surrendering individually rather than follow orders to destroy their own cities. The civilian population, faced with the choice between dying for a lie or living with the truth, chose truth. Within hours, Supreme War Leader Vorthak was the leader of nothing but a small group of fanatics, hiding in underground bunkers. "Admiral, Hyun Woo," came a transmission from the planetary surface. "This is Civilian Administrator Kethrol. I am authorized to surrender all remaining Keth forces and request terms for peace." The formal surrender ceremony took place on the surface of the Keth homeworld. Hyun Woo found himself standing in the same room where generations of Keth leaders had planned the conquest of hundreds of species. But the terms he offered surprised everyone, including his own officers. "The human government offers the Keth people full membership in the Galactic Liberation Alliance," announced diplomat Ye Jin, reading from the treaty. "Former Keth military forces will be integrated into the Alliance fleet under human supervision. All former slave species will be granted immediate independence and the resources necessary to rebuild their civilizations." Administrator Kethrol looked confused. "You are not going to enslave us in return?" "Humans don't believe in slavery," Ye Jin replied. "We believe in freedom. That includes freedom for former enemies who are willing to change." The transformation that followed was remarkable. The Keth Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for 10 millennia, was replaced by the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Former slave species became independent members. Even many Keth chose to join rather than cling to their failed ideology. Ji Hai, the colonial administrator who had defied the first Keth ultimatum, became the first human Keth coordinator, overseeing the integration of former enemy worlds into the new alliance. "It's ironic," she observed during a meeting with Admiral Hyun Woo. "The Keth tried to destroy us because they thought we were inferior. But in the end, we saved them from destroying themselves. Do you think they've really changed?" Hyun Woo asked. "Some have. Others are still struggling with the idea that they're not the master race they thought they were. But their children are growing up in a galaxy where cooperation is valued more than conquest." Years later, historians would study the human-Keth War as a turning point in galactic civilization. But those who lived through it understood the real lesson. When you declare war on humanity, you're not just fighting a species. You're fighting an idea. The idea that intelligent beings should be free to choose their own destiny, and that idea, once released, can never be defeated. The galaxy had learned the truth about humans. They weren't the deadliest species because they had the best weapons or the largest fleets. They were deadly because they refused to accept that freedom was impossible. And once they had proven that freedom was possible, every other species in the galaxy wanted it too. The Keth Empire had made a simple mistake. They had underestimated. What happens when you threaten someone's family, someone's home, someone's right to exist? They had declared war on the most persistent species in the galaxy. And persistence, it turned out, was the deadliest weapon of all.